Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we meet again this Saturday. The class is on Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. So in future, what we have decided is, many of you might have visited our new website, which is, of course, nearly complete. It's not ready as such, but it's working. So on the website, we'll be giving the schedule of all the classes. And we may not be sending the WhatsApp messages every time because the link is not going to change. The link will be same, the Zoom link. And the time is more or less same unless there is a special event like tomorrow we don't have the gospel class and instead we'll be having a class on Sri Krishna, his life and message. That is because we are celebrating Janmashtami tomorrow morning. But the 4:30 class, instead of the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, it will be on Sri Krishna, his life and message at 4:30. So apart from these minor changes, the classes on Saturday and Sunday will be held at 4:30 every Saturday and Sunday. And as you know, the alternate classes are Saturday, if I am here, if I go out, then it will not strictly be first and third. It can change. So it will be every alternate Saturday when I'm here. It will be either on Bhagavad Gita, which now we have come to the 11th chapter. That was last week, last Saturday. Next Saturday, of course, I'm not here. I'll be in Berlin. So, but anyway, the alternate classes will be Vedanta, that is Upanishads, and the science of human possibilities, that is on one Saturday, followed by Bhagavad Gita, 11th chapter right now, but it'll change. We have come up to the 11th chapter, that is on the other Saturday, the alternate Saturday. And Sunday, of course, it will be alternating between Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna on one Sunday and Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master. So we have Sri Ramakrishna's life and message on Sunday, alternately, because it makes sense to study them together. You cannot understand the life without understanding the message. You cannot understand the message unless you know the life. And Upanishads and Gita, since they are our main scriptures, we're alternately discussing that. But in future, the whole thing will be in a tabular form on our website in the program menu. If you go to the website, you'll see. And unless if there is a change, we will change the status and say that the class has been cancelled. Otherwise, or change to something else. Otherwise, it will remain the same. Because there's no point in just sending so many WhatsApp messages with the link. Neither the link nor the YouTube live link changes. It is the same. All you need to do is log in at 4:30. So having said that, we come back to where we left in our previous class. We had discussed a very interesting topic, that is the connection between brain and the states of consciousness. We discussed what consciousness was according to Vedanta and how it affects our human possibilities. Depending on our states of consciousness, our possibilities are more and more revealed, not only to us, but to the world around us. So it's Thakur used to say, consciousness, one who is conscious of his self. Man Hush, he played a pun on these words. Hosh means consciousness or awareness. So real Manush, if you want to know what a Manush is in Bengali, so one whose man, or man means mind, and is fully aware. So to the degree that we are aware, totally aware, of course, nobody would be confident to say that he is 100% aware. Most of the time, it's a combination between full awareness and partial awareness. That is, part of our mind is always unconscious or behaves unconsciously. We are not 100% conscious. If we were 100% conscious, or if we had merged ourselves in pure consciousness, then we would either be in samadhi or in nirvana, as Buddhists would like to say. But unfortunately, a part of our mind is dragged down to both the body, mind, and the whole psychophysical complex, which we call our personality. And that reduces the degree of consciousness that we feel. If you are 100% conscious, Thakur used to say beautifully in Bengali, Bodhe Bodh. It is very difficult to understand. Bodhe Bodh means to be fully aware of our awareness. So does that mean we are not fully aware all the time? Yes, we are not fully aware. If you see, right from the moment we get up, when we think that we are aware, we are in fact not aware. Many of our tasks, beginning with getting up, doing our ablutions, even brushing the teeth, and so many tasks we do unconsciously. We don't do it fully consciously. Maybe we are aware, we are awake, but that doesn't make us fully conscious in the Vedantic sense. We are doing it most of the time mechanically, doing it but thinking of something else. Our consciousness may be in our whole day-to-day routine, and we are unconsciously doing many things. Half of our activities, if you see, is done without our full involvement. We may be doing something, but we are thinking something else. That means our consciousness is, as it were, partitioned. We are not fully conscious about what we are doing. So this, to solve this problem, the Buddhists developed a meditation known as Vipassana, or it is known as mindfulness. So what they do in this type of meditation, though it's one of the different techniques of meditation which has become popular, is they just ask you to be fully aware of everything. If you are breathing, be aware of your breathing. Watch your breath, watch your action, watch your every movement, which we don't do. Unfortunately, we don't do. But it looks very impractical because we have never been trained from childhood to do this. If you see, there's a beautiful book which Revered Swami Bhuteshanji used to say, even to brahmacharis and monks, he used to say, before you even ask me questions on meditation, first go and read a nice book. To many of us, not to all, The Miracle of Mindfulness by one of our famous Vietnamese Buddhist monk, who wrote a book, because during the Vietnam War, a lot of prisoners who were suffering a lot, he was one of them, and he was just troubled to see his fellow prisoners going crazy, because not that they were tortured or anything, they were in jail, like he himself was there, but they didn't know how to make use of time. So they say he was given, of course, allowed a little paper and pencil. So he jotted down many things, which ultimately was published as The Miracle of Mindfulness. So what he did was, he told the prisoners, don't try to live in the present. Don't bother yourself thinking about the past, or the future, what will happen to us. Anyway, you are doomed. Not doomed in the sense you are now imprisoned. You just have to wait. Whatever destiny is in store for you, it is going to happen. But why do you just unnecessarily go crazy? And many of them started developing abnormal behavior. So he said, just focus. Now you are supposed to go take your food, do. Prisoners have a fixed routine. You see, they can't be doing whatever they like. Everything is. But he said, you don't have to do everything unconsciously and keep worrying. To stop the worry, to stop anxieties of the future, because of which many of them were suffering. He said, just focus on what you are doing. Suppose you are eating, just focus on eating, focus on your breath. If you are breathing, there's no moment in our life when we stop breathing. But most of the time we are not aware that we are breathing. That is what is meant by Thakur's statement, bodhe bodh. Means we are aware, but we are not fully aware. We are doing half of our life is we spend our time unconsciously. So to be fully conscious is the goal of life, because that gives you, that merges you in the consciousness of the pure consciousness which Vedanta speaks of. But it is a very, very extremely difficult task, and all the meditation techniques, including the meditation technique which we prescribe in the Ramakrishna order or any other Hindu tradition or other traditions, they deal with this principle. So perhaps Bhuteshanji Maharaj used to feel that once you develop that Sakshi Bhava, that witness attitude, where you are aware of your awareness fully, whatever you are aware of, whatever you are doing, you are living fully in that, you are focusing on that. You save a lot of energy because the mind is not moving here and there, thinking of something else when you are doing something else. It is popularly nowadays known as multitasking. We talk over the phone, we eat, we watch TV, so many things we do. And you imagine what harm it does, because that is the very reason why our minds are so scattered, so disturbed, because it, really speaking, according to Patanjali, human mind or human consciousness is not capable of multitasking. Whatever it does, it can do one task at a time. Then you may say, how can we do so many tasks? Maybe to different organs, you are getting different input. You are hearing the radio or even watching a TV and at the same time cooking and doing something. And you may appear to be multitasking, but what really happens, if you observe very clearly, is that for a fraction of a second, you are watching the TV. For another fraction, immediately, it is so small that you think it is a continuous process. You are listening to something else, you are talking to something else, maybe you are talking over telephone, and there is so much of changes. Our consciousness, our attention, our focus changes so much that is the responsible for all the stress and anxiety. So what this mindfulness does, this is a basic technique. It's not the end of, it will not lead you to nirvana, or this is one of the techniques developed for novices. And for some people, this mindfulness can go, or they get used to it, but then there will not be progress. They're higher and higher. Just to give you an idea that it may not lead to the desired, it may not take you to the desired goal, but it helps in the beginning. That is why Maharaj used to perhaps say, first read that, see, you first have some control over your mind before you attempt higher forms of meditation, which obviously requires more like repetition of the mantra, focusing on the Ishta Devata in the heart. All these things are much higher forms of meditation, because there you need to have visualization and many things. But the basic thing which we lack, to even as a first step to learn meditation, is this technique of being fully aware. That is the basic minimum with which we should set out even to learn different techniques. So now when we understand what is the difference between consciousness as defined in Vedanta and the neurological sciences, the study of brain and other things, we come to a conclusion which we will now prove by uh, mm, quoting the different or studying the different commentaries on the different Upanishads or Vedanta about the close connection between the brain and the states of consciousness. You cannot deny that. According to the Western concept of conscious, you are conscious. For example, you do multitasking, you are conscious of many things not at the same time, but you are jumping from one thing to another. You have to remember that. At one point of time, either you are listening or watching the TV or doing some activity, or you're focusing on your cooking. But if you're totally focused on your cooking, as Swami Vivekananda's life, it was one scene. That is how he was so focused that he was reading a very, very trivial book, Pickwick Papers. It's a famous book by Charles Dickens. It's a humorous book. So he was reading that book, and somebody happened to enter the room. And he was maybe a famous person. So when he was reading that book, he was so engrossed in what he was reading that he didn't notice this person had come. When we talk of multitasking, we are not in that high state where we are so much absorbed in what we are reading. But Vivekananda's mind, when it gets focused on something, maybe it may be just a simple book, he was lost. He lost himself in that book. Maybe it is humor, some simple book, but he was so focused that he didn't notice. And the person who entered the room felt that Swamiji is insulting him, is ignoring him, is not even aware, because people are used to that. We are used to multitasking, and we think it's a great achievement, not knowing that it is not conducive to our spiritual welfare. So anybody who tells you that if somebody multitasks, does many things at the same time, no doubt from the worldly point of view, is achieving many things. He's not wasting time. He is perhaps doing so many things. We appreciate him, but from the point of view of spiritual development or meditation, he is making a tremendous mistake, because the more you focus, the more your mind is distracted, the more less one-pointed it will be. So you will find, even in Sri Ramakrishna's life, if you read, that is why it's very much necessary to read the Great Master. If you see, there are certain instances where Swami Shardananji discusses the day-to-day behavior of Sri Ramakrishna. And Master Masha in his reminiscences also mentions this. There are many things which you don't find in the Gospel or even the Great Master. He said, we observed the Master, if he suddenly said that I will go and have darshan of Mother Kali, and he will come out of his room. M was so at alert, he could record everything, and he observed everything, because that's why perhaps Thakur asked him to record the Gospel. He knew this person will not miss out anything. So he just used to see Thakur, once a sankalpa is made, he is 100% focused on that. And he will straight start walking. He just makes a sankalpa, or he even just utters. And whatever he uttered, he did. He could not do anything other than what he uttered, because he was a stickler for truth. So when he said, I'm going to have a darshan of Mother, and he started walking, no person on the way could stop him. Nobody. He even totally ignored, and he would walk. Many people perhaps might have thought he's such a rude person. He's just walking. But because he was not capable of doing many things at a time, his mind was so focused till he had darshan. And then if he will turn. If anybody happens to come on the way, he would not bother. He would not get so easily diverted. What does it show? That is what Swami Vivekananda also, when he was reading this book and the person felt ignored, and then suddenly when some time passed, when his attention was drawn away, he said, "Oh, when did you come?" Perhaps the person thought he is pretending. What kind of person is? I'm standing in front of him and did not. But it's really true. For a person who is so focused, so his awareness, whatever he does, maybe it's a very trivial task, it's 100% attracted. The mind is attracted. That is what is known as the consciousness bodhe bodh. As in Bangla, it is what Thakur means is you be aware of your awareness. We are not aware of our awareness or consciousness. So the connection between the brain and the states of consciousness cannot be denied. According to Western psychology and neurology, they'll say whatever is there is the consciousness is in the brain. For them, consciousness is a very simple thing. But we cannot trivialize like that. Though there is a connection, deep connection for 99.9% of us, our consciousness is totally connected with brain. That's why when somebody is unconscious, we think he's not conscious. But this extra physical consciousness is something which, other than Vedanta, many of the modern biologists or neurologists will deny. So the argument that is given now, that we see in the children, the example that is given is when you see children developing, we very normally see as the brain develops, the intelligence or the consciousness of the child increases. But that is not true. It's not that the child becomes more conscious. In fact, he loses his consciousness. His mind gets diverted. If you see the infant, he may not be intelligent, he may not do multitasking, but whatever he does with full consciousness. Whatever he sees, that is the world for him. He doesn't think beyond that. But still, for practical purposes, we say that as the brain develops, a person's consciousness develops, though it is wrong to say. But we cannot at the same time deny, because brain is an instrument through which this consciousness is manifest. So there is some degree of truth that the more we are conscious, the more our brain functions properly. That's why when we have dementia, when we keep forgetting things, what people, according to Vedanta, our consciousness also is diminished. No, it's our function of the brain, that capacity to reflect that consciousness and react to external circumstances is affected, not the pure consciousness. That's why they say man of illumination, apparently, outwardly, they fall sick, they also fall into, maybe they go into coma. So does that mean that there is no spiritual progress? Whatever they have done, is that wasted just because he forgets things? Because the brain is not functioning, but his consciousness can be totally focused on whatever goal he has set for himself. So as the the scientists, the psychologists and all say, or even some of the Western philosophers, that had the consciousness been a function of the cerebral process, as is very often now, scientists have this problem with philosophers or with Vedantins in particular, that how can you think of extra cerebral consciousness? They just can't buy that argument. So all the thought processes, if that is the case, let us consider for the time being that what they say is true, the scientists and especially the neuroscientists. If they say, then all the thought processes that every human being exhibits during his lifetime, whether he is normal or whether he is with dementia or whether he is having Alzheimer's disease or any other disease, irrespective of that, his decision-making capacity, that is viveka, it is known by technical term, the choice-making capacity or decision-making capacity, his determination, that is Sankalpa Shakti. In Vedanta, there are so many aspects of our personality. One is determination, the discriminative, to decide what to do, what not to do, which is a function of buddhi, not of the mind. For the very crude and ordinary mind, decision is not a problem, because like animals, somebody barks at them, they bark at them. That's all. They just know one way, unless they are trained animals, so they just react. So it's a reactive mind, which is 100% predictable. You know what happens if you touch a snake. It will just react and bite you. So that kind of mind, that reactive mind, is known to everyone. So there is no question of all these decisions are mechanical. So all the decisions, like decision-making capacity, they belong to the higher faculty of a person, which is known as buddhi. So a person with buddhi or wisdom, he will not react immediately. He will decide how he should react to certain situations. That's why we call him, he's a man of wisdom, because he doesn't get upset like other people. So then determination is determination not to get troubled by the external circumstances. There's so many irritating people around you. Some people get irritated immediately. Some people have the capacity to just ignore the inputs that their mind gets. Not that they don't feel irritated, but they have that determination not to react. Then deliberation. Deliberation comes after you determine, you deliberately, you use your willpower to react or not to react. That is deliberation. First you take a decision, then you determine what is good, what is bad. That is what is known as choice making. And then that is the function of buddhi. So we need a very well developed buddhi to even react properly. Then volition, that is willpower. Now, for how long you can hold on to that? So, for example, patience. Patience is a good thing. You know it is good to be patient, but then there is a limit. You say, now it's not possible for me to be patient anymore. That means the willpower is not fully developed. So these things, decision, determination, deliberation, what to do, what not to do, volition, that is willpower, and the purpose, the goal. Why am I doing what I am supposed to do? Or why can I justify what I'm doing? Some people may say that what you are doing is not correct, but you say, no, I know what I'm doing. So how I should react to people around me and how I should not react, that is my prerogative. I should decide. So that purpose or that capacity, not only to develop a strong will, but also explain why the purpose behind all your actions and so forth cannot be explained by purely mechanical processes. Because the mechanical brain, whatever you may say, is just designed in such a way that it will mechanically react to external stimulus. So that kind of brain we share with animals. You can't expect an animal to use all these faculty. If they had, they would be men, they would be like human beings. So when we study this subject, the science of human possibilities, it's actually the science of developing our consciousness. That is what we are driving at now. The point that we are driving is, spirituality just means that we are all conscious beings, no doubt. Just as the animals and the plants, they are also conscious, but in a lesser way. They are conscious in a limited way. Not that they are, but they are not manifesting the whole consciousness. Behind all of them, even the inanimate objects, there is this highest consciousness. But that is philosophy. Let us come to the human being. How much of this consciousness do we really manifest? In Thakur's simple words, Sri Ramakrishna's simple words, it is bodhe bodh. How much of that consciousness is our own? And how much is dissipated through this body, this mind, this ego, and so many dimensions of our personality, they just do not allow that consciousness, pure consciousness, to manifest. That is why The science of human possibility, I am exploring few possibilities. I am exploring those possibilities which make me a skilled sportsman. That is my physical possibility. I am exploring some more qualities. I'm a good sportsman. I'm a good, physically very strong because my consciousness has been fully developed. But at the same time, I've developed my mind also. So I'm intellectually also, my mind, the skilled mind which I have can do many tasks much better than other people. I can solve problems, I can logically analyze problems. That is at the second level. Then we go higher. When you say the other possibilities, have I developed this decision-making capacity, this determination, this deliberation, this willpower, and am I aware of my purpose of all my actions throughout the day or maybe part of the day? Many times we are doing just because we have to do it, because society demands. And in that respect, we are little better than social animals. That's what, unfortunately, the definition in sociology, the first sentence comes and we think it's such a huge, big definition. Man is a social animal. Why should we be degraded to the level of animals? Are we just social animals? A little better than animals. We don't quarrel, fight on the streets, but just nicely manage to outwit each other. We don't just quarrel, and we are slightly better social. So that is, of course, that is a possibility which has been explored, and humanity has managed to lift itself from that animal level and just become a social animal. But then we have to go further. We have to become divine beings. That is what evolution, or the manifestation of all the possibilities, the science of human possibilities. If mechanical forces governed us, Vedanta says, then we would have just become like robots. Even robots can perform all the skills. Now AI, if a lot of development in artificial intelligence, if it continues the way it is doing, it can do many tasks much better than us, because they will never make mistakes. So we will just become automatic beings, just reacting perfectly 100%, but still we will not be having these capacities, decisions, determinations, egolessness, compassion for other people. These cannot be mechanical. A robot will never be mechanical. You can't expect a robot to be emotional, to be kind, compassionate, even breaking the rules to forgive somebody. It will just do how it is programmed. So we are not programmed human beings. We have to go. In fact, it is not. The choice of action, the choice of decision is a prerogative given to human beings that only human beings can exercise. And how much of that he exercises determines how intelligent he is. He is capable of volition, he is capable of willpower, infinite willpower. He has the freedom of will. So this we discussed in the gospel class, in the previous class, where somebody asked this question in the chat, whether our will is free or whether it is God's will. How much of will is our own free will? How much of will is God's will? If it is just cosmic will, then what are we doing? We are not responsible for anything that we do. But no, this freedom of will is a consciously developed one. The spiritual development implies that you can free your will to a large extent. Of course, you can ultimately, in the long run, it will be united with the divine will. That is why when people, avataras or great saints, they say, when Swami Vivekananda once asked, why don't you cure yourself? Then Thakur said, no, it's all mother's will, because that was how we used to say. But Swami Vivekananda and other disciples, they knew. They said, see, why are you just saying it is mother's will? It is your will. Your will and mother's will, are they different? So Thakur understood that what they are saying is correct. But at the same time, he did not want to use his will or mother's will, which had become one, for this silly thing like curing the disease he had. Because he had a higher things to do than just cure diseases. So this development of will, the freedom of will, it's a huge difference between a mechanical robot and a mechanical person and a conscious person. A conscious person has this power, and one of the famous philosophers, Henry Bergson, of course he had some medical background as well, he said there is infinitely, at least he admitted, unlike the other Western philosophers and psychologists like Sigmund Freud and others, who merely said it, man is a victim of all his unconscious desires and samskaras. No doubt it is for 99%, but that is, we are talking of sick mind. We are not talking sick minds. We are not talking of healthy minds. But anyway, Bergson says in one place that there is infinitely more, something more in human consciousness than the corresponding brain functions. At least he admitted. What it was, he did not know. So, just as some of them very crudely say, just as a liver secretes bile, that's one of the functions, pancreas or whatever it is, it secretes bile and it does so many things. The brain does not secrete consciousness. Some people go to the extent of saying that consciousness is a product of, just as a well-developed brain will be more conscious and it will secrete just as if it is a juice or something, a hormone which our glands secrete. When it is induced, you find the bile and other things. So the liver and other things. But, or they give another example, just as a firefly, though there is no fire in that, it emits some kind of light. It's luminescent. If you see, if you perhaps go and touch, there's nothing, no fire there. But we call it firefly because we really have the illusion that there is fire. So he says, what is so great? Now, brain will emit consciousness as the child grows up. Is it as simple as that? Is consciousness, can it be reduced to just a brain activity? So, to deal with this problem, we'll come to Shankaracharya and other people who have gone deeper. He said the self or the pure consciousness, which is distinct from how to establish this. Now it is not a matter of our experience. Though we may read Advaita, we may read so many things that we are pure consciousness. How many of us can feel that? So the self distinct, the self or pure consciousness, Sat, Chit means consciousness, and the bliss, pure bliss, separate from body and mind, is a lifetime achievement, you can say. It is not so easy to just separate this. Now it has got terribly mixed up because of a wrong thinking. But then it can be separated. That is what Vedanta, we have to come to with the science of Vedanta as the science of human possibilities, that not just dismiss this as a function of the brain, but see what is this consciousness. How far can we go? How far can we develop that? The mind and the body, though they are closely connected, if you see, one is not the integral part of the other. Mind may function in such a way that it affects the body, and the body may function, you may be exhausted and physically tired. It may affect the mind, but they are independent of each other. So we will discuss this point later. But what Vedanta says is thought is not, it comes to one definite conclusion that thought is not, it completely rules out that it is not just the function of the mind. Mind may use, thought is a function of the mind, but not of the brain. That is the conclusion. Because if you reduce that for every thought a brain is required, then you are confusing the mind with and say that it's a product of the brain, which is not. It is an expression of our consciousness through a particular modification of the brain. No doubt brain is instrumental. It's like if you have a powerful light and if you have a green glass, you see on the other side the rays may be, the color may be green because the glass is green. It's not transparent, it is opaque. So its opacity is enables the light to pass through, but what you see is a green light, not the original light. Similarly, that particular modification of the mind which a human being exhibits outside, or he reacts to the circumstances outside, is his consciousness as reflected through his brain. It would be wrong to say that it is his consciousness in total. What is that infinite conscious? What is his real consciousness? What is that bodhe bodh? What we say, bodh, Thakur is telling such a subtle truth that the thought, that is bodh. When we say, when we use in Bangla, bodh means to think. So bodhe bodh, what is the consciousness behind our thought? To determine that is real Vedanta. In two words, he has expressed what is Vedanta, the consciousness which enables you to enlighten the thought that you are thinking. The thought is just something that is a product of your mental process. So it's one of the modification. That is why Patanjali gives thought a wonderful word. It is known as vritti. Vritti means the word for thought in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Actually, it starts with yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta means the mind, and vritti means a modification. So he is very clear right from the beginning that yoga is to stop this modification, because they give you an incomplete picture. The vrittis are not the mind. The mind is something behind. So when you have to calm the mind, you come to the pure consciousness, this chitta vritti has to be stopped. And we are doing exactly the opposite. Our chitta vrittis are, the more the chitta vrittis, we think we are very intelligent people. In fact, the degree of confusion increases when we think more. That is why some of the Buddhists, they just want to go into that thoughtless state. But it is a dangerous thing, because you cannot just come to that state. It has to be a very natural process. So the Hindus have involved a positive way. You can't just make your mind thoughtless. That can be equally dangerous, because we are not designed, our brains are not designed that way. The thought processes have to be controlled. Chitta vritti has to be controlled, not just made blank, which is extremely dangerous. So in one of the ways it is explained is that during dream state, a sleeping person, obviously is not awake, he is in a dream state, he can still think, he can feel as if he is awake, he can see almost everything that he sees with the eyes closed, he can imagine things, he can run also in the dream, many things can happen, though he is not conscious of the body. His body is lying flat. So how do you explain the dream state? That is one of the methods used to show that mind can function even without the body's involvement. Eyes are closed. Then how do you see these wonderful sights? Maybe you can say it is memory, but still you have to see. Some mind has to perceive that. So we call that Jagrit Avastha, waking state, Sushupti, that is deep sleep, and Swapna, that is the dream state. So even if one does not have to be conscious of the body, that shows that the mind and body can be separated. At least the dream state will prove that. The brain is almost inoperative, though it is not, it is functioning obviously, otherwise the person will die. So also the heart and all the other organs, but it's not operational as it is in the conscious person, a waking person. In the study of dreams itself can show you that mind can operate without the support of the sense organs, which are fully active or at least active when you are, it may not be fully active, but at least a normal person with normal eyes, normal hearing, at least they are active. A majority of the sense organs are active when he is waking. But what happens during sleep? Everything is the same. The dream is almost something very similar, though it is a bit different from the waking state, but still it is many things which you saw in the waking state, you see there. So whatever may be the manifestation of consciousness in the waking state, in the dream state also, the what is seen in the waking state is a reflection. We just try to deduce from this that something gives the dream state its reality. You can't just dismiss, just as you can't say that this waking state is not true. You can't say, at least till you are perceiving it. So also you can't deny that there is a dream state because you are perceiving it even then. So what is it? So the Vedanta says it's a reflection of that luminous self, that consciousness which has not gone to sleep or not gone away. Even when you are dreaming, you see that. Just as that consciousness is required to operate your brain, operate your organs, and perceive the world around you, even when you sleep, in a subtle way, it is still percolating. It is a reflection of the luminous self. And then what happens during deep sleep? You may say, in deep sleep, you don't even see dreams. So what happens to the consciousness? It definitely exists. If it had not existed, say, for example, our consciousness, the supreme consciousness, which is reflected more in the waking state, a little bit in the dream state. Suppose in deep sleep, you may say that it is totally gone. Then who is the person who feels when he gets up that I had a very good sleep? If you are not aware that you had a nice deep sleep, that is why some people, you ask them, they'll say, no, I didn't sleep well. How did they know? Either they were dreaming or they had nightmares and they got up and then again they went back to sleep. Again they dreamt. And then in the morning, the net result is they'll say, I didn't sleep. How did you know? Or if you slept well, you say, I had wonderful sleep yesterday. It's very clearly obvious when you ask a waking person. He can tell you, most of them can even tell about their dreams. But since they were not alert when they were dreaming, they cannot remember many dreams. But definitely they know that they had good sleep. Unless a person is totally insane, he doesn't know what is. A normal person will definitely tell you whether he slept well or not. So that is one of the reasons that consciousness is awake, even in deep sleep, when not only the body, but also the mind is not very active. The subtle mind, which is very much active during sleep, even that, if it goes to sleep or if it becomes totally, if it is stopped, still that perceiver, that luminous I, that consciousness that I slept, somebody, I means that consciousness that you identify yourself with. You don't say somebody else slept. A normal person will never say that. He said, I slept, because that I is still there. That ego or that ahankara which was there, maybe the mind was totally calmed down, or maybe the mind did not exist at that time. Mind in the sense, the sense organs. There's no dream, there's no waking, but at least the sense that I got deep rest. Because we, at that time, they say, we get a glimpse of the pure consciousness. That joy, that ananda aspect of the pure consciousness. They always, the pure consciousness, or the definition of God according to David Bentley Hart, he said, I saw compared all the different philosophies. The only proper definition of God or the supreme existence is existence, Sat, consciousness, that is this awareness, prajna, and bliss, ananda. So these things are there in all the scriptures in some form or the other. When you say, how can you define God? These three things have to be, these three things you cannot deny. You cannot deny that you don't exist. You can't say that I don't exist. You can't, You can't deny your own existence. Sorry, you can't deny your own existence. No matter whether you had a good sleep or a bad sleep, you just can't say that I'll either say I had a good sleep, or you'll say I did not have a good sleep, or I had a dream, I had a nightmare, or I didn't sleep at all. But that I doesn't go, that Sat does not go. You always existed, whether you dreamt in any of the three states, you were there. And second thing, you were conscious. Otherwise, who's the person who is telling, who has observed all these states? So Chit is also a Chit, or consciousness, Chaitanya is also an aspect. And Ananda, because that joy, if it is not there, then why will a person be happy if he sleeps well? You see, it's an unexpressed thing. You don't have to tell. If somebody has really slept well, he feels a sense of joy. So that Ananda also is one of the essential aspects of our consciousness. So medical science at least accepts this. Even William James, who was a great psychologist, and in fact he was a great friend of Swami Vivekananda, he wrote a beautiful book after meeting Vivekananda, which is considered to be an all-time classic. It's known as Varieties of Religious Experience. I mean, he was curious. Maybe his meeting with Vivekananda, he said, let me just explore. We explore so many experiences. If you take intoxicants, experience when you smoke something, so many weird experiences you get when you take drugs. So he was trying to make a study. Then he thought perhaps even religion is something like that. These people say they have visions. Let me study. But then he really genuinely saw, when he met Vivekananda and discussed with him, he decided to write a book. Because he said a vast literature, religious literature, deals with these experiences. How can you say, if you say taking certain psychedelic drugs, certain people see certain things and you make a great study out of it, and that is considered to be a very sane thing to do. And if you say that all these prophets and all these mystics, their experiences are all false, can they all be false? So Varieties of Religious Experiences is a book which William James wrote. That's a very important book written in early 1900. After meeting Swamiji, I think he was inspired. He just wanted to collect all the various experiences and at least write a book, whether he understood it or not. At least he took the initiative of writing this book, Varieties of Religious Experiences. So the time is over if there are some questions. So medical science, I'll just conclude with this. It can testify to the fact that a large portion, this is something known as, which is a recent study, which one Dr. V. Ramachandran did in America. He is a pioneer in that, where he showed, because till now it was thought that certain parts of the brain, if they are damaged, some of the functions will be lost. It is true. For 99, most of the cases, it is true. But he showed in extreme, exceptional circumstances, some other portions of the brain, which normally don't do these functions, they take over. This is known as neuroplasticity of the brain. So, medical science, in those days, it was not so much developed. When William James and all those, but they knew there is something definitely beyond the brain. So he said, he made studies of certain people whose large parts of the brain were damaged or removed for certain surgical reasons, but and their consciousness remained intact. It's not that just because this major portion of the brain was removed, maybe they exhibited some abnormality, but their consciousness. You see, for example, Stephen Hawking, he used artificial methods to even communicate. He wrote books, he did so much of communication using computers, and he was aided by a lot of technology, but still, that consciousness, if it was not to be there, how could he be so intelligent? So, even if you destroy a large portion of the brain, we'll conclude with this today, because this is a very, very abstruse subject. So many things science has developed so much that at least it is approaching something very close to what Vedanta says. So significant, this V. Ramchandran, who wrote several books on, or did a lot of research on the neuroplasticity of the brain. He said, even if the brain, certain portions which are necessary, even if they were removed, the other part of the brain performed those functions. So somehow they showed in the laboratory, it's not just a theory, that other portions of the brain can take over this. And even if it is seriously damaged, the human being can be conscious, and can have all the faculties correct. I mean, faculties sharp even after this damage. And it does not affect the thought process, because we did not know what happens when such a diseased brain, what he may be thinking. We normally think if a person is not able to react, he's lying on a bed, and we go on talking all sorts of things in front of him, he may not be able to hear. It's not true. He may be even sensitive to what is being told. He may not be able to express. So it's not a wise thing to totally rely on science because science has not so developed so much. And imagine that the consciousness is destroyed because certain neurologist or somebody tells you that a certain portion of the brain has been damaged. He may still be conscious. There may be extracorporeal, consciousness which enables him to receive data or maybe even react. He may not be able to react because his brain is not giving instructions to his body or to act. But at the same time, he may be perceiving things. He may be perceiving these autistic people. If you see, some of them have fantastic talents. Though he's not supposed, there are certain parts of the brain where the consciousness is manifest through those small parts. It takes the functions of other parts and they can do well. So medical science has not come to a conclusion as far as locating the consciousness in a human being. So that is the study of Vedanta. So where is the location of the self or the consciousness in the physical body will be, according to Chandogya Upanishad, we shall see. That we'll discuss in the next class. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
How can someone in coma progress
spiritually? Oh, yes. It may be possible, though it may not be a very common thing. Definitely, because his mind, as I said, with all the discussion, the essence of what we discussed today is, there is definitely evidence that the mind, which is subtle in nature, has no connection with, not fully connected with the brain. That's the thing which we discussed right from beginning. Right from beginning, we were discussing this, how independent is the mind from the so-called functions of the brain. So if that is the case, coma is one of the neurological disorders, isn't it? So there is enough evidence to assume that the mind still continues to function. He may not be able to react, but definitely he may also not get inputs, because that mechanism also may be there, but that doesn't mean the mind doesn't function.
But how do you?
No, we cannot, the person, see, that's why they say spiritual progress or spiritual experiences, they're totally subjective. You can't analyze or judge a person. That is why, Tony knows much better. When Swami Gananandji, Tony can testify. He had a very, very mischievous thought. When Maharaj was very sick, Swami Gananandji was coming down the Muswell Hill stairs. This is what he told me. So he's there. He can correct me if I'm wrong. Holland Park, sorry, not in Holland Park. Holland Park was our second center. So he was coming down. So for a moment, he said, he himself admits that he thought, oh, how can this person who is so sick and looks, looks frail and How can he be spiritual? So when he came down, when he just passed by Tony, he just turned to him and said, appearances can be deceptive. So he was shocked because how can he know, Maharaj? No. So there is evidence, obviously progress can be made. So coma is one of the states, physical disabilities. So the whole talk, if you see today, we discussed that only. How it is wrong to conclude, how it is scientifically wrong to conclude that the neurological processes of the brain, including coma, are affect our mind, our mental states. Because the subtle progress that you may make, according to Vedanta, they are not lost. They still are there. That is why one of the important questions which Arjuna asked Krishna, if you see, he was worried because you see people are normally afraid that their hard-earned money, property, everything, when they die, they suddenly start getting panicky. What will happen? Who will inherit all these things? Will it go to the right person? So Arjuna had the same idea because he was a gross person. So he asked, suppose I develop a lot of spiritual power, do a lot of sadhana, and I die suddenly without reaching the goal. What will happen? The logical question is, just as I lose all the wealth and property, everything will go to dogs. In the sense, it can go to anybody. It may go to the right person or wrong person. Or definitely it is not going with you, with us, isn't it? None of the gross things that, including the body, will go with us. So it's logical. Arjuna was right when he questioned Krishna that you're telling me by doing all these spiritual practices, I will get a lot of, like wealth. You work hard and earn wealth. So I worked hard, I got a lot of spiritual merit or benefit. And after I die, what happens? Will that go away like the clouds which disperse? You see the clouds, suddenly the wind comes and they are dispersed. So Sri Krishna assures him, he said, don't worry, anything that you have done, any good, whatever good you have done can never be lost because it remains in the subtle. That which is gross is destroyed. That which is gross, the body, the property, everything will be left behind or destroyed or somebody else will take it. But your merit, that subjective experience of spiritual practices that you have done, that will continue. It may not manifest immediately because you will be again born as a child. There will be biological limitations. You will inherit the biological characteristics of your new parents, but still the samskaras will be there. That explains why some children become so spiritual. The parents are same. They may be twins, but physically they are totally same. Biologically they have inherited same thing. One becomes a great saint, another becomes a evil person. So that whatever progress you have made, whether you are in coma or whether you are fully awake or whether part of your brain is removed, so many things happen. Some people are paralytic. Swami Shardananji was paralytic for so many days. He was paralytic, but do you think he would not have repeated the mantra? Spiritual practices will go on. It is supposed to go on even after one goes into coma. So that's why otherwise all our presidents, so many presidents, some of them have passed away in coma. So do you think they will all be doomed? So it's not so. At least Krishna says it is not so, that whatever you have done is not lost. It will definitely, if you are born again, you will carry on from where you left. It's not like I earned $1 million and somebody gives me a guarantee and next time you come and prove. Some madcap said, we can have some system where if somebody can tell something about the past birth, we can give his property back to him. So there was some talk, ridiculous talk that you open an account, post after you die. Maybe if you can prove that you are born, you were that person in your previous birth, maybe you will get back. So people even want that. Sadhguru joked. I don't know whether it was a joke or something. No, not Sadhguru. There was another person. I forgot his name. Not Deepak Chopra. Some others. I should not be naming anyone. But they said it is it can be in the future. It may be a possibility that you leave all your wealth so that nobody touches it, and your intensity or your desire is so much that you want your wealth. You are born again, and then somehow you remember your previous birth, and if you can prove you were that person, then the money goes to you. They have gone to that extent. I mean, it may not be physically possible, but so that shows. But my point is, there is definitely progress. Spiritual progress does not stop because it's a subjective thing. So what you have set into motion, the sadhana that you have done up to the point, that's why they even say, some people ask this question. In the Gita, it is written, whatever is your last thought before you die, that will determine your next birth. It's there in the Bhagavad Gita. So what happens to a person? He is in coma. So what is his last thought? So they say, if you see, some of our senior monks have said, the last thought before you lost consciousness. So a person who is always thinking of Lord, his last thought will be that. So it's not that you think all sorts of things and then expect that, oh, on the last moment, we will think of the Lord. We will think of the Supreme. If that were the case, then it would have been very easy. But what you are habituated to, the idea is, even if before losing consciousness, if you had made a habit of remembering the Lord most of the time, the chances are that you will remember and then go into coma. So you will be definitely making progress. In fact, there is one incident, I don't know whether you have read it. Swami, what is his name? Swami Turiyananji was once going through Vrindavan. So suddenly, because they could see certain spirits living there. So on the tree, he saw a lot of bearded people doing sadhana. So he asked them, he said, yes, we have given up the body, but we don't want to leave Vrindavan. We want to just stay here and finish what we had not done. Maybe they are not born. So that was a revelation to Swami Turiyananji. He says, the Turiyanji or Akhandanji, I'm not sure, but this incident is there. Then he prayed for them. Then they also said, you are a Mahatma, so you just pray for us so that we get liberated. We don't have to do much sadhana. So they were doing sadhana. So maybe even if they were in coma, they would have done it. Now they have lost their body, but still they don't want to be born because there are so many good samskaras that they don't want to get bound. So they would rather, they say that krama mukti, there is a concept of kramaha mukti. So you go to the different planes of subtle existence. Finally, you get liberated. May not be in this birth, but you may have to wait. That's the idea.
Do you have time for a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there is.
In the realm of spiritual practice, how do we understand difference between human endeavor to realize God and God's will or grace? Is human endeavor also consciousness?
Well, both are consciousness, because consciousness alone exists. So whether you call, the question is, of course, I'll repeat the question. The question that was asked in the chat box was that what is the difference, or how do we understand whether it is God's grace or human endeavor or human will? So this question I have answered if you attended the previous class. In the gospel also, Thakur gives a beautiful example of a cow tied to a rope and the rope tied to a post. So you cannot say how much of that is your will, how much of that is God's will. So there is equal, not equal, but there is importance of both. You just can't say everything is divine grace until you reach that state where Sri Ramakrishna could say it's all Mother's will. My will is not there. We have not reached that state. So God has created that idea of self-effort in us. And the only way it can be explained is through this parable of Sri Ramakrishna, where Sri Ramakrishna gives an example. This question in fact was asked to him in the gospel. If you see, gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he says, is it all God's will? Because he very often used to say it's all Lord's will. Then what can I do? I can't do anything. So he gives the example of that cow who is tied maybe 10 meters long rope is there. It's tied to a post. So it can't go beyond that. But it has freedom, lot of freedom to come, to go 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, till the rope allows. But after that, if the Lord wills, or if the owner of the cow feels that he has finished all the grass, he has done his karma, he has finished his effort, the self-effort the cow had to do, then it may loosen that rope, say 10 more meters. So, okay, now you have a bigger area to graze upon. So, it's a proportion, it's an entirely subjective thing, how much you feel that you have to do sadhana. If you still feel, I have to do purushartha, that's why Sri Krishna says, till that stage comes, you have to do all whatever your self-effort demands, or self-effort, whatever self-effort you think you need to do. That is like using the full length of the rope. So that self-effort is there. Human endeavor is definitely there. Otherwise, some man will not make spiritual progress. He will say, if it is God's will, I'll just lie down and let God do everything. He won't do. Only when you have tried your best, then the question of self-surrender, then the question of loosening the rope comes. Okay.
A small last sub-question to this. If it brings you closer to God, it is His will. Yes or no?
Yeah, definitely. That is the definition of religion Swami Vivekananda gave. In fact, he was asked, what is good, what is evil? Because that is a serious question. What is good to somebody may be evil to somebody else. If you say it is good to kill mosquitoes, if you ask the mosquito, he will definitely not say it's a good thing. So he was given the definition, he was asked to give a definition of what is good, what is evil. So Swami Vivekananda gave a very simple definition. Whatever takes you towards God, or towards the Supreme, or towards your own self, Supreme Self, that is good. And whatever prevents you from doing that is evil. So that's a simple definition. Every time you do something, you find out whether it takes you towards God or away from God. The answer is there. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.